And we've got some quite pleasant evening twilight conditions here on the harbour, and a fleet of 66 taking part. So we had 74 last year, so we're only slightly down on those numbers. And we have a southerly prevailing, which is proving a little bit of an oscillator at the moment, but we'll get more on that from my co-commentator, and a very special co-commentator, I've got to say, former world youth sailing champion, a double Olympian and an Olympic silver medalist, Lisa Darmanin. So Lisa, great to have you on board, and tell us about these conditions. What can we expect?
Well, it's looking fantastic out here. As you said, we've got a southerly breeze blowing. It has been shifting from the southwest to the southeast, but we think that they're going to have the Jenicas and the Spinnakers up for the start. It is quite gusty though, so it is a tough decision of where to start, and we know that that Watson's Bay area can get quite light, so it'll be interesting to see which side of Sound Peaks, the South Reef, that the teams go.
Well, we have 3 100-footers, 3 maxis competing, and this is the penultimate race before the Rolex Sydney Hobart, and part of a 6-race series for the Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water Pointscore. And we've got to say at the moment, one boat has absolutely dominated, URM.
URM is showing everybody how it's done. They've won 3 so far, and I know they'll be gunning for another one. They have been really impressive, and their navigator also, Alice Parker, doing a fantastic job, taking some risks, but also that's paying off. So it'll be interesting to see how she plays it out tonight. And
it's all part of the Raymarine Australian Maxi Championship. This is the first race in what will be a 4-race series. So the Cabbage Tree Island, and then we'll have a short passage race on Sunday, another one on Monday, and then we have the Solus Big Boat Challenge on Tuesday. So 4 races will determine the Australian Maxi Championship, which is also the mini maxis from 60 to 80 feet and the maxis from 80 to 100 feet. So that's going to be fascinating as well.
Yeah, this week is really a good run-up for the Rolex Sydney Hobart. A lot of the crew are flying in. I know some of the teams are missing some of their key crew members, but most of them are around. So it's a really good chance for the teams to gel, to get used to it. And tonight is also a great opportunity to practice that watch system. And it's a little bit short to get fully into the groove, but we heard that they are going to give it a go and work on that balance between performance, fatigue, and how it works on their boat. But it's looking like a bit of a long race, Gordon.
Yes, it certainly will be. 12 hours last year, Andu Comanche, they were home by breakfast. But I don't think we're going to see that scenario again this time. But let's wait and see. Mother Nature will have the final say.
It looks like it will be over 20 hours, so a little bit of a longer stint. I hope they've packed plenty of meals on board. But yeah, so we think around 20 to 22 hours for the mini maxis and maxis, and then the TP52 is a little bit longer, and then I think a few of the other yachts will be trailing into Sunday.
So not far away from the 10-minute hooter for the start of the 2023 Cabbage Tree Island Race, which is part of the Australian Maxi Championship, the Raymarine Australian Maxi Championship. And as we mentioned, it's an automatic qualifier for these boats. A lot of these boats, I think the majority will be taking part in the Rolex Sydney Hobart, the 78th edition, on Boxing Day this year. So that's a very important aspect, I think, as you've pointed out.
Well, every team has to do an overnight race to be able to, qualify to be ready to do the Hobart. And I think only 2 yachts racing tonight will not be heading south on Boxing Day.
Now, we mentioned the 3 100-footers. We have Andu Comanche, we have Law Connect, and we have Scallywag. Scallywag has undergone an 18-month refit up in Brisbane for David Witt, and they are really having their first outing since that refit. So they're going to be new, but everything's new on board. They've spent a lot of money, and the owner's watching in Hong Kong.
Well, the boat is looking pretty good, so I'm sure they're going to be hoping to put it all together, and obviously having some good runs down to Hobart in the past. I'm sure they'll be pushing the other maxis for those line honours.
And then the mini maxis are interesting too. We have 6 mini maxis and the 3 maxis, the 3 100-footers. But we have some interesting boats there in the 6 mini maxis. They're going to be very competitive.
Yeah, well, we definitely said that URM's looking on top form, and they've been putting a lot of time and effort and money into making that boat go fast. We've got Alive, we've got Whisper, Money Penny, got No Limit as well, and we've got Wild Oats 10. They will not be going down to Hobart, but they're here for the Cabbage Tree 172 nautical mile race.
And Mark Richards at the helm, very famous Australian yachtsman with all of those wonderful victories across the line, and also on handicap with Wild Oats 11, the grand old lady of Australian ocean racing. We had that lovely shot of Law Connect, who's going to be really gunning it with Scallywag and Andrew Comanche in this downwind start. And what about the start line, Lisa? We're sitting just off Point Piper at the moment.
So we're at the boat end of the line off Point Piper, as you said, and then the pin end is down towards, not all the way towards Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron, but it is quite a long line. But the problem is we've got Garden Island right in the way. Oh, sorry, is it Clark Island? So that's going to be interesting to watch how the teams set up in the pre-start and get ready. But it is a downwind start, and we've got plenty of twilight boats coming upwind as well. So they're going to have fun navigating this gusty course as they make their way out the heads, but also dodging commuter traffic and twilight traffic.
I seem to recall we had that situation last year as well, with all of the Royal Sydney Yacht Squadron twilight fleet mixing it with the Cabbage Tree Island fleet. But
well, where else would you rather be on a Friday evening with beautiful conditions and twilight sunlight?
And there's also a lot of interest. We will get to see a lot of the two-handed entries. They'll be clearly towards the back of the fleet. We think the big boats are going to be out pretty quickly out through the heads. But the two-handed entries are fascinating. We have Mistral with Rupert Henry and Greg O'Shea, who won the two-handed division of the Rolex Sydney Hobart last year. And also they're eligible now, the two-handers, for the overall prize. And you've got Disco Trooper, Contender Sailcloth.
Tonight they're not sailing with two, though. We heard they're sailing with six, so taking a break from the two-hander. And we've also got the New Zealand team, Nixon, a bit of an unknown in the fleet, but they're out here tonight to give it a good run and mix it with the other two-handers. So that class is really exciting to watch, and there's plenty of them out here.
So, yeah, we ran into Wendy Tuck, who's on Disco Trooper, with Jules Hall. They were the two-handed entry in the that actually have been very successful. But Wendy's got a lot of the Youth Sailing Academy people on board, where she's played a huge role.
And a couple of women on that boat too, which is always great to see more mixed sailing out here. Got the Navy boat setting up at the moment. They're going to have a bit of a long night ahead of them. And when we talk about the weather forecast, as I said, it's a southerly breeze, so they're going to have a nice downwinder reach down the coast. And we know that this race is all about getting around the island. That 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. is really important. We think that the wind's going to shut down towards that, probably before dawn. So I know that the bigger boats are trying to make it round that lee of the island before the wind shuts down. And then tomorrow it's kind of, you're waiting for that northeast sea breeze to build. So the morning's going to be pretty grim. I think a bit of bobbing around for some boats. So I think they'll try enjoy the conditions that we've got at the moment for as long as they can this evening.
Well, we're just sitting off the committee boat at the moment, and I see that John Herman Winning Jr. Is not on board Andrew Comanche, the skipper. He's giving us a wave at the moment, but and you've got a story about him, John Winning Jr. Why is he not steering Andrew Comanche?
Well, I hear he's doing his other passion this evening, doing a little bit of DJing. So he'll be busy doing that, but I'm sure the boat's in good hands, and it's probably nice to watch from the safety of the chase boat. And I mean, if you look at Andrew, it just looks absolutely fantastic on Sydney Harbour. And the other team member they're missing is, of course, Ian Murray. He's busy in Jeddah doing the America's Cup as race director. So I think we've got Sevi Jarvan still doing the tactics on that boat, and I think Graham Taylor is taking the helm. So Herman looks very comfortable there, and then off to do his DJ set later.
And Sam Fay has also stepped off board. I believe he has family commitments. So, yeah, it's an interesting crew on Andu Comanche. Very experienced, though, and very competitive, as we know.
Well, they do have the race record, so I'm not sure if they just made excuses because instead of 12 hours, it's about 20. But beautiful evening to watch them sailing.
And a lot of their European imports have arrived, so we can look at that once we get the race underway.
So we've got 4 minutes 20 until the race starts, so not long now. We'll see all the yachts setting up, making their final run in, and yeah, we'll see the tactics out of the start. But it's looking like it is dying quite quickly. There's a few big puffs out here, good gusts, but a lot of big holes, so you've got to be careful not to get stuck in them as you navigate your way out of the harbour.
And there's Scallywag, just off to the left there with that striking mainsail. And in close attendance, Andu Comanche, and there's Whisper in the foreground, Dave Griffith. Now, we spoke to Dave Griffith on the dock, Lisa, and he was saying exactly what you pointed to, the apprehension about getting round Cabbage Tree Island. That's the big question mark for him. If they can, well, they're certainly in the money.
Well, I guess you want to use the most of the southerly downwind as much as possible, but if you don't get round there, it's these bigger yachts. They don't have that advantage that they have when they can really take that speed. So it's going to be hard. I think the forecast isn't looking that great. The southerly has died a lot since early this morning, and yeah, it's going to be a real race. And they've also got to navigate that notorious Stockton Bight, the shallow, bumpy water. So that'll be a bit of fun. And a few jives around all those container ships off Newcastle too. So see if that watch system really goes into play, or everyone's up on deck doing a couple of jibes.
So just under 3 minutes before the start, and the sun is poking through the clouds, so it's a very picturesque setting for this year's race. And as we mentioned, if you've just joined us, a fleet of 66. And there's Ragtime, one of the mid-range competitors. 13-metre J130, Steve Watson from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. A Rod Johnson design. So just over 2 minutes before the start, and the adrenaline's starting to pump.
It's really patchy up here. As we were saying, it's a southerly breeze, so it's coming over those hills, navigating the eastern suburbs, and it's really gusty. So from my eyes, it looks like it's going to be quite tricky to get your time or distance, because if you're in a big gust, you'll get there in no time, but if you hit a lull, you're going to be late. So I think it'll be eyes out of the boat.
Now there's the most beautiful big boat in the fleet, Oroton Drumfire. That is the way to go to Hobart.
Well, I hear they have roast dinners on there, so I think that's actually quite good. I'd go on that one if they're listening. Ask me next year.
I must say, that's also my idea of going to Hobart as well.
It's a beautiful boat as well, but yeah, we've got all three Super Maxis in the picture right now, setting up. They're coming towards us at the moment, so they're heading towards Point Piper to do their final run in with just 1:20 to go.
Tony Mutter, Chris Nicholson, Law Connect, and David Witt, former World 18-foot skiff champion, at the helm of Scallywag, SHK Scallywag, and Andu Comanche, Graham Taylor. And Sevi Jarvan, the tactician. So those three 100-footers are literally eyeing each other.
It looks like they're all just trying to peel up this way, and then they'll all get ready just to turn down and go. So not much run-up starts, all trying to feather the boat at the moment. We've got Wild Oats 10 fully into windward, really ready just to not go over that line and creep. But yeah, 37 seconds to go. It's going to be pretty close here. They're drifting fast, and the tide's coming in. That could help them, but it's not moving that quick, so I wouldn't bank on it.
Well, last year, Wild Oats 11 was over the line early and had to be recalled. There was an individual recall. So I'm sure Mark Richardson, Wild Oats 10, will be making sure they don't fall into that trap again. But just over 10 seconds to go.
It's quite crowded at the top end of the line, near the committee boat. 8 seconds to go. The middle of the line is looking a little bit punchy. I think someone might just be over the line. Everyone's going bow down at the moment, unfurling that beautiful sail, and they are off.
Yes, it looks as though we've had there's a recall, individual recall.
I think it was down closer to the pin. There was a handful of boats quite early, but it's so crowded up here. There's a little bit of tussling going on.
Antipodes, the light blue hull there for Jeff Hill and the Royal Hong Kong Yacht Club have had a good start, but very congested. Very tight racing, Lisa. Lisa, Pretty Woman also having a good start, one of the smaller boats.
There's just metres in between the boats, but Wild Oats 10 had an absolute glamour start at the top of the line, and I also think they've got a really nice angle. We see the Super Maxis, they were kind of middle of the line. Scallywags really popped its bow out, but Andu is challenging them to get around that bow and get that clear air.
So Wild Oats 10 won the start, but very quickly we're seeing Scallywag and Andu Comanche steaming through, absolutely steaming through towards the western shore. They're having a ding-dong go.
I mean, that is sailboat racing. That's what we want to see, neck and neck. And Andu, they've really been able to punch out there. I think they're going to look pretty comfortable. They've got quite a tight angle. As I said, it's downwind, but it's quite a tight angle. And as we move down the harbour, we think it's going to go more southeast. So that angle to get out of the heads, I don't think they're going to get too close to Watson's Bay at all. It's all going to be to the west of Sour Pigs. And then when do you make the call to turn right and get your way out the heads?
Andu Comanche certainly a little quicker. Law Connect is probably trailing by 100 metres at the moment. And URM again had a fabulous start. They won the start last year at the committee boat end, and although they're giving away nearly 30 feet to the 100-footers.
So Law Connect, they haven't unfurled or deployed their spinnaker. They're actually dropping it at the moment. So I'm not sure if there's an issue on board or they think that they're going to need to drop it to make their way out of the heads. So we're just getting on them now. They're dropping. We're right on Scallywag and Andu, but yeah, just behind you can see everyone else has got two sails up, but the big one at the front, and Law Connect is just dropping theirs at the moment. So hopefully we'll see what their strategy is, but right now it's Andu that have really punched out in front, but the pressure is on from Scallywag.
So a dream start for Andu Comanche, and David Witt showing all of his competitive instincts in Scallywag. As we mentioned, this is her first race in 18 months for Scallywag, and she's showing plenty of speed and power, but just trailing by 40 or 50 metres at the moment of Andu Comanche.
I mean, an absolutely beautiful evening on the harbour with the sun setting, and a fantastic day to be out here, but that start was intense. There was so much going on, and it was about trying to punch out and get clear air, and that's what the top boats have done. And we see Andu are really into their form. They're heeled over so much at the moment, and considering how close Scallywag and Andu were at the start, you can see the pace that yacht has.
And it was very congested, wasn't it, at the committee boat end, with a lot of those smaller mid-range boats really having a go. It was a time for cool heads.
Sorry, was that?
It was a time for cool heads because they were in such close proximity.
Well, there was a lot of noise happening,
yeah.
And the boats were just meters apart. So I think that's what I was saying. It was so gusty. We had good breeze at the start, and it got pretty heated there. I think there were a couple of two-handers really pushing their way in there. But I think they like that side of the line, so they have a nice angle out of Sydney Harbour, but still looking pretty congested back there. But the bigger boats are spreading out.
So Andu Comanche,
Law Connect, they've now got their spinnaker flying, so there were obviously a bit of an issue with the unfurl there, and they'll be putting everything in to try and catch the other yachts as soon as possible. But as we said, it's about getting out of the harbour is always the fun part, and then it's the battle to and around Cabbage Tree.
Andu Comanche's opened up a lead of 100 metres over SHK, Scallywag. And now, as you mentioned, Lisa, Law Connect is starting to accelerate. She's back in the groove after that little hiccup, and she's trailing by about 400 metres behind the other two 100-footers. But we did note of the mini maxis that Whisper had a good start. URM also had a very good start, and Wild Oats 10 probably won the start overall.
Yeah, they're looking fantastic. I said that they were pretty close to the line, but they were obviously bang on, and they're actually looking really strong right now. They've got a really good angle out, and will sail less distance than Andu. But yeah, they're looking really strong, and it's not getting too light up ahead, so they should have a nice run to the southern turning mark.
So while we're on Wild Oats 10 here, it's worth remembering in 2018 they had a wonderful battle with Alive, the near sister ship, and it was only, I think, a small gear failure near Tasman Island that cost Stacey Jackson and the all-female crew an overall victory in the race. But fantastic boat, still very competitive, and Mark Richards at the helm. And there's Andu Comanche on the right, chased hard by SHK Scallywag.
So we're just getting into some lighter wind as we are, or alongside Andu, we're chasing them out the heads. It's getting really light out here, so we can see that the hull is where they're starting to flatten out. So they were heeling over quite a lot up the harbour, and as we get towards the heads, it's getting a lot lighter under Watson's Bay. We're going to pass to the west of Sour Pigs.
And here's URM, a spectacular performer in the Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water Pointscore series. She's won 3 of the 4 races so far, and probably should have won the Tollgate Island race. They hit a big hole off Bondi Beach and sat there for 4 or 5 hours when they're in a winning position. But sensational performance by URM.
Yeah, of course, winning Bird Island and Sydney to Gold Coast race, and the Flinders one as well. So I'm sure they're looking pretty good for the overall, but they're going to be pushing tonight because, as I said, it's really good training for the big roast in a couple of weeks.
And all 4 Johnson brothers are on board. Anthony, David, Andrew and Nick. David is the CEO of the URM Group, a company that's very much involved in sustainable waste and recycling, and they're globally situated as well. And skipper Marcus Ashley Jones in the Reichel Pew 72 doing a great job, as we are here with SHK Scallywag, and trailing still by 100 metres, Andu Comanche leads the charge out of Sydney Harbour.
So they're just about to clear the lee of South Head. They're starting to turn up and really get on a reaching angle. So this will be an interesting moment to watch to see what they do with their sail setup. Obviously don't want to be too overpowered, but they will, once they clear North Head, have to redeploy. So a little bit of crew movement about to happen. We can see that they've got 3 sails up at the moment. Sun Hung Kai Scallywag have just deployed theirs. And 3 sails just nice and heeled over, good pressure. The rest of the fleet are trailing behind, but pretty quick exit out of the harbour. And very similar to the last 2 years, we've had downwind starts for the last 2 Cabbage Trees.
And just the one rounding mark off South Reef. Andu Comanche maintaining that lead of 100 metres over SHK Scallywag, and Law Connect is probably now 300 metres astern of Scallywag.
So I've just looked behind me, and some of the smaller boats are actually going on the eastern side of Sour Pigs, so a little bit of a different tactic, but I just don't think that they've started up the other side of the line, and they're deciding to take that route.
In racing parlance, they're saving paint along the rails.
And we've just seen Andu furl their Jenica, so they're getting ready to reach across the heads and get that angle. But it's not looking too bumpy out there, so nice little ride across the heads. But SHK Scallywag trying to probably hold on a little bit longer and
well, they've certainly made up a bit of ground there. They're in nice breeze with more power, and they've closed that gap probably to about 75 metres. Wow, look at that sensational scene on Sydney Harbour. We believe it's the best harbour in the world, and we're not biased at all, but anyone who wants to challenge us, you're very welcome.
think it looks even better with 66 yachts with their sending it down the harbour. But on Law Connect now, they'll be disappointed, but they've obviously been able to fix it pretty quickly. Just up ahead, I can see that Scallywags felt theirs as well. So how long can Law Connect? They've taken a little bit of a sharper turn towards that turning mark, which will give them a little bit more of a groove. But there's a little bit of movement going on in that boat at the moment, thinking about it, but plenty of heel, and I think they're going to have to furl pretty soon.
So they really stumbled out of the starting blocks, really, with that little mishap with their head sail. But Tony Mutter will be competing in his 9th Hobart, the sailing master, on the helm. And Christian Beck, the owner, not on board. But as you can see, Law Connect, the legal software business for Christian Beck, really nicely in the groove at the moment.
So they've done a great job managing this pressure, and I actually think that there's a nice little funnel at South Head. So the boats that are coming close to this point are getting a nice puff of breeze to sneak him around South Head, and then they'll pop out the other side. So that's what Law Connect did, and the next group from the fleet, as we can see behind us, is more on the eastern shore and hugging that side and trying to make the most of that puff.
So Law Connect, only about 75 metres off the South Head rocks. And those smaller boats, the mini maxis, they're going to be clearing the heads in probably 12 or 13 minutes from that start, just off Point Piper.
It's pretty light out here. It's probably, I'd say, 8 to 12 knots. There's some big holes out here, but the angle is super nice. You can see, we were on Law Connect at the moment, but you can see up ahead Scallywag and Andu basically pointing and shooting to North Head, ready to peel round and head north. But Law Connect definitely holding the 3-sail setup for a lot longer and trying to make up that ground that they ultimately lost at the beginning. But everyone up on the rail, trying to get that riding moment and push the boat to its limits, I guess. Why not when you're in third chasing your 2 competitors up ahead?
Well, it's been the bridesmaid for 3 line honours battles for Christian Beck, but it's about perseverance, and their luck will turn, I'm sure. But the boat is actually a winner on line honours as Investec Loyal and also as Perpetual Loyal back in 2016 when they broke Wild Oats 11's record by nearly 5 hours in 1 day and 13 hours. But
I'm sure after getting second a few times, they'll be really pushing for this win. Of course, coming second in Cabbage Tree as well last year behind Andrew Comanche.
Yeah, they've got...
What a picture that is, as you can see the Super Maxis reaching out the heads and about to roll down again. We've got Law Connect finally furling the Jenica and following the other Super Maxis. But to me, the distance between Scallywag and Andu is closed up quite a bit once we got to this reaching angle.
Yeah, I think, as you mentioned, with Scallywag holding on a little longer off South Head, they were able to make up some distance, and they're certainly in close contact at the moment. But those mini maxis now, we're going to look back at some of those boats because they're next coming out through the Sydney Heads. Wild Oats 10, Alive is there, the 2018 Rolex Sydney Hobart winner, and Whisper also doing very well, and of course URM. So all of the suspects, all of those very competitive boats around the 60, 70 feet mark doing exceptionally well, led by Wild Oats 10.
And just what we're talking about Alive, that they claimed IRC honours at the Hamilton Island Race Week earlier this year. So they've had a good year and they'll be pushing to have another good run. just looking at the pressure, as the boats make their way out of the heads, it is quite light and bumpy. But if we look further out to sea, there is plenty of breeze, lots of white caps. Looks about 14 to 16 knots, so it'll be quite nice downwinder once they clear this reach, which I'm sure they're all quite happy with.
So 66 starters hit the line for the 2023 Cabbage Tree Island Race. Wild Oats 10 won the start near the committee boat end, really sprinted clear. It was perfect timing by Mark Richards. As distinct from Wild Oats 11, the superstar of the Sydney Hobart with all those Lion Honours victories. And there's Scallywag having that private war, and there in the background Law Connect now. Trailing by about 300 metres, URM, Marcus Ashley Jones at the helm, and another brilliant start by them. Now, Moneypenny is the boat, Sean Langman, that we haven't mentioned. Moneypenny's also had some extensive refitting, and she's looking quite magnificent. This is her first race since the refit, and Sean has his son Peter on board, and of course they took their division out on their little 30-footer in the Fastnet race.
So they're 7th out the heads, so not bad. And we're back on Law Connect at the moment. They have redeployed and they're heading downwind, as has Andu and Scallywag. So Spinnaker's back up and they're going for 4 sails, it looks like. 3. 4 sails, so they're full power as they make their way north. We've got No Limit. They've had a paint refresh, so the grey, they're holding their Jenica a bit longer than some of the other boats as well, trying to make their way through this lighter patch. But I'd say they're not looking like they're going to do anything anytime soon. They might push through.
Yes, the Reichel Pew 63 for David Goetz, the former president of Australian Sailing. And we'll work our way back through the bulk of the fleet now, who've all had a nice afternoon run. And the Sydney Hobart winner, Celestial, first of the TP52s, is setting a cracking pace also.
Interesting setup they have there, and they're a little bit deeper than everybody else, so not sure how that's going to play out, but No Limit still have all 3 sails up there, pushing and flapping, and yeah, Celestial, haven't seen that one yet.
So Sam Haynes and Celestial, the TP52, leading her rivals. And we got a protest. Not sure. I mean, there was plenty going on that start, so not sure. That's Koa, Andy Kiernan, flying a protest flag. So another TP52. And the light blue hull in the background is Antipodes. The Santa Cruz 72. Highly strung and Struggler just about to come into shot. And still on the boat that's leading the Audi Centre Sydney Bluewater point score, URM Group skipper Marcus Ashley Jones, who'll be competing in his 19th Rolex Sydney Hobart, and a very well performed boat indeed. It won the Maxi and Mini division of the famous Rolex Giraglia in the Italian Mediterranean 13 years ago. We got Smuggler. So Smuggler, I think they got 2nd in the IRC in the Bird Island. So a lot shorter race, but that's another TP52 out here. So nice little fleet that they've got there. And I know that in all sailing, no matter what, you're always doing your own little battles. And so there's a nice little battle going on in that Mini Maxi and TP52 fleets. Yes, a nice start there by Smuggler Sebastian Bohm from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. So this telecast being streamed right around the world And on the big screens at the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, people having dinner there tonight. Beautiful cuisine from the Boathouse restaurant at the Cruising Yacht Club. And people can, if you're outside the 5 kilometre distance from the CYC, you can go to the Cruising Yacht Club, the headquarters of ocean racing in Australia.
If you're not a member, or if you're closer, you have to be a member or a guest of a member.
Exactly, yeah.
So we've got Willow.
That's Whisper.
Oh, it's Whisper,
Yeah.
sorry, heading there.
So Whisper, Dave Griffith, carbon fibre JV62. They've had a reasonable start. They won the 2021 Australian Maxi Championship in the Mini Maxi division. Again, the great story with that boat Whisper is in the Brisbane to Hamilton Island race, they actually hit a whale at 20 knots, and Dave Griffith said it was like hitting a brick wall. They came to a shuddering stop 30 miles off Rockhampton. So the boat had to be trucked back to Sydney, and it's been a very expensive process over the last 8 months to make sure she's back in fine fettle. And she's looking resplendent as the sun is about to set. So Pretty Woman, Richard Hudson from the Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club.
Pretty Woman took out the Wild Rose division in the Bird Island race just a couple of weeks back as well, and obviously that's a division to encourage female participation. And we did see Wild Rose telling us that they've also got a couple of women on board keeping that alive.
I'm just looking at that sail number there. It's Pretty Woman, Richard Hudson, the FAR 45, and Bumblebee 5. Now that boat won the Sydney Hobart 21 years ago for skipper Ian Murray. And they
haven't competed since the late 1990s, so it's nice to see them back.
With Peter Blakely now, the owner of Bumblebee 5. Sticky from the Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club, the Cookson 50. Finished third in the Flinders Island race.
And they're currently fourth overall in the Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water Series. So pressure's on to get the points. Obviously, we've got the 5 races. This is the penultimate of that series, with the final being the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race, which is double points and non-discardables. So every race is important, but you're in fourth. You've got to push to get on that podium.
Yeah. And now we're getting into some congestion as we come round the reef at South Head, with a whole gaggle of yachts coming through. Probably round about 45 yachts now still to come through. So we've got a couple of
Allegro just passing our stern, the 67-foot carbon fibre racer.
Maritimo 54 here as well. Maritimo Kendall Barry Cotter, the skipper, won the Melbourne to Hobart race last year.
I mean, absolutely beautiful scenes in Sydney Harbour. I think that sunset, wind's dying off quite a lot. We are looking at the lightest spot that they have been, but everyone taking that shortcut and pushing as close as they can to South Head, not going too wide. But we're getting a bit slower back here, but that gives us a little bit more time to figure out who's who and see a few tussles going on, perhaps.
Yeah, it's certainly very competitive. Lightning from the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia, finished 4th in the Torgoat Island Race for Alexander Flickno. Excess moment.
We've got Helsel as well. They've got an interesting story, Gordon.
They have Helsel. The original Helsel won the Rolex Sydney Hobart in 1973. You may recall, the older generation watching, that Helsel 1 was the concrete footpath, the floating footpath they called it, and it smashed the record in the Sydney Hobart race. Tony Fisher was the owner and skipper, but his son, Rob Fisher, is now on board representing the Royal Yacht Club of Tasmania. And I think there are 4 members of the Fisher family on board. So they love their sailing. And
the Jaybird Ocean Crusader.
A very interesting boat, TP52. It sailed two-handed last year in the Rolex Sydney Hobart for Ian and Annika Thompson from Queensland, from the Whitsunday Sailing Club at Airlie Beach. And yeah, fascinating boat. It's all electric.
We've got a spectator making their way through the fleet here with no sails.
There's Jaybird now, and as we've mentioned, they've actually raised the cabin because Ian is 6 feet 5 inches tall, and they've raised it to a headroom of 6 feet 8 inches. So everything above the deck has been basically refitted in a 4-year rebuild, replacing everything above the hull. Carrera S, Gerard Cantwell, a Martin 49, launched in 2006.
It'll be their 5th Rolex Sydney to Hobart as they head down this year.
Reichel Pugh signed. And these races have always been splendidly supported by the Sandringham Yacht Club in Melbourne. But now we're getting into another 30 or 40 boats here. And Mistral, sail number 1. Mistral with Rupert Henry and Greg O'Shea, two-handed, having a battle with Disco Trooper, which was a two-handed boat and won the inaugural two-handed in the Sydney Hobart, but now they've got 6 up on board. So it's a whole new adjustment for Jules Hall, and he has Wendy Tuck on board as well, and members of the Youth Sailing Academy. But Mistral doing a great job, the two-handed boat.
We've got Rush just behind them. The Far 45 will compete in its 11th Sydney Hobart this year, with John Patterson completing his 14th journey south. So no stranger to sailing seas.
Supernova just behind astern, sail number 6499, just about to come into shot there. Supernova. Felicity Nelson and Alex Sager, they're sailing two-handed from the Middle Harbour Yacht Club, a Mum 36. So Supernova. And I must say that Felicity Nelson is only the 2nd female to complete 25 Rolex Sydney Hobarts. She'll be doing her 27th in 2023.
We've also got the Making Waves Foundation heading out the harbour now, and a great initiative by the team there, getting at-risk youth out sailing. And I actually met one of the ladies last night that works at the foundation. She said, when we take the sailors out first, we say, we'll take you for the sail. And at the end of the 8-week journey for them, learning how to sail, they take the owners for a sail. So a nice initiative, and what a way our sport can really give back. We've got Nixon is about to come into view, and that's the two-hander from New Zealand. So they made their way across the ditch, and they're a bit of an unknown for the two-hander fleet here. And I'm sure the Aussie-Kiwi rivalry will continue. And we've got 10 international entries this year for the Sydney Hobart, and with Nixon being one of them. So they've had a bit of training making their way over here, and so Cabbage Tree will be a short journey after where they've come from.
Representing the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron for Mark Michelle and Logan Fraser. And very shortly we're going to see a very famous boat, a 3-time winner of the Rolex Sydney Hobart Yacht Race. I'm referring to Love and War, originally built by Peter Kurtz and now owned and skippered by his son Simon Kurtz. We lost Peter Kurtz nearly 20 years ago, wonderful Australian sailor. And Love and War is probably one of the most famous yachts in the history of Australian offshore racing, because in 1973 Love and War won this race, this very race, 50 years ago. Isn't that incredible? And our own Peter Shipway, the voice of the Sydney Hobart, is on board, and he was on board 50 years ago. Now that's giving his age away. He was on board Love and War in 1973 when they won the Cabbage Tree Island Race. Isn't that amazing?
So they're going for the win again, do you think?
Absolutely. Why not?
There we go. Got a bit of a wave. Cruising their way out. But one of 3
and I think,
yachts.
Is that... yeah, I can see Peter Shipway there. He's well rugged up for the elements, that's for sure.
One of 3 yachts that have won 3 times. So not many have done it. I think Ichiban and Freya. So
yeah, so it's
not an easy thing to do.
It's very exalted company, you might say.
Looks pretty crowded on that boat, so they're going to have plenty of conversation and no problem with hands.
Exactly 50 years since they won the Cabbage Tree Island Race, and the trophy for this race is the Halverson Brothers Trophy. Simon's son Philip is in the bow. A beautiful Sparkman and Stevens timber design.
Doesn't want to be distracted. Thumbs up. It's ready to go. We got a couple of yachts still to come, a handful. A few two-handers heading out. Tumbleweed, we've got father-in-law, son-in-law duo, Nigel Nattrass and Graham Beale.
So Luna Blue and Enigma here.
So Luna Blue will return for its second Rolex Sydney Hobart under its owners John Turnbull, David Watson and Steve Kellaway.
Representing the Royal Prince Alfred Yacht Club. And we mentioned Enigma.
Jason Bond's Enigma. He's had that since 2008 and sails out of Manly Yacht Club, where he was the previous Commodore.
So Jason Bond, it's sort of a... That name is somewhere between Jason Bourne and James Bond, isn't it?
Got to watch out for him then. That'll be their first Hobart since 2019, so looking forward to seeing them back on the start line.
So the sun almost setting beyond the city skyline. And here we have Wayuna.
Formerly known as Kraken. The Sunfast has competed in the Rolex Sydney Hobart before under the name the Kraken, and it's from Perth, Royal Perth Yacht Club,
which was the host club for Australia 2. Its successful challenge for the America's Cup back in 1983. Jeanneau Sunfast 3600, Wayuna from the Royal Perth Yacht Club.
Their third trip down south, and a bunch of experience and youth on that boat from Western Australia.
So we've got Western Australia, we've got Victoria, Queensland, New South Wales, Tasmania. I don't think we have any South Australian entries in this Cabbage Tree Island Race, so I stand corrected, but great to see all of the Australian states involved in ocean racing and aiming towards the Rolex Sydney Hobart on Boxing Day. Just repeating, this is the penultimate race in the Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water Pointscore. URM, which had an excellent start for Marcus Ashley Jones at the helm, and the four Johnson brothers on board. They are leading the Blue Water Pointscore. This race is the second last in the 6-race series. The Sydney Hobart will count for points double. Moneypenny won the Blue Water Pointscore last year for Sean Langman. And as we mentioned, Sean campaigned Maluka of Commandi, that little 30-footer, that beautiful boat that's 90 years old, in the Fastnet race, and won her division, which was a sensational effort.
So you see in the distance there's plenty of clouds forming over the city and around, so that's sort of shutting the breeze down for what we're seeing. I know when we were out here before, out in the middle of the Sound, we were saying that there was plenty of breeze out here, around 15 knots, but it's really died down. It's, about 8 knots at the moment. It's quite light, and in the distance we can see the big boats are taking off. Obviously we've got those 3 super maxis, and missing one that will be hopefully on the start line. Wild Thing 100 is doing everything they can to be ready. We heard that they're in the water, they've got their keel on, but they've got to get the mast up and all the rigging, so a bit of a timed run for that start. So I'm sure they'll be sitting watching the tracker, which everybody can watch, and follow the race throughout the evening. If you've got nothing better to do at 4 a.m, you can see who rounds Cabbage Tree Island just off Port Stephens, about 320 kilometres up the coast first.
And there's the tracker, so you can follow that on the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia website, the famous yacht tracker. See how the fleet is progressing in this year's Cabbage Tree, and of course all eyes are on the tracker once we get to the Rolex Sydney Hobart. But Lisa, what was your impression of the start, particularly with the 2 100-footers dicing as they did?
I think it was really impressive. Scallywag looked like they had a better start from where we were sitting, but obviously Andu Comanche just had the better pace for the angle of the breeze. So sometimes you can be right on the start line, but if you're not going fast on the zero, you can get edged out. So they took that lead pretty early, and obviously have collected quite a few line honours recently. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone can actually beat them. But a Wild Oats 10, what a fantastic start by them up the line. Knew exactly what they needed to do, and I think Mark Richards has a bit of experience, but that definitely showed in that start.
Yes, so the Wild Oats 10, one of 6 mini maxis competing in the Raymarine Australian Maxi Championship. This is the first race. There's going to be a passage race on Sunday and another on Monday, and then the Solis Big Boat Challenge. And we'll be doing a live stream of the Solis Big Boat Challenge on Tuesday next. So make sure you join us here, courtesy of the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia. And Lisa, I believe you're going to be on one of the boats.
I'll probably be with you, Gordon,
okay.
But there'll be plenty of action. As we said, there was plenty of action in the start earlier this evening, but I think the Big Boat Challenge is where there's plenty of yelling, plenty of screaming, a lot of tossling, and lots of action for us to watch as well. So it's always good fun. It's a great day to get out on the harbour, and obviously watching live stream. And as long as Shippers is back in time, he'll hopefully be joining us as well.
Yes, well, I'm sure he will be. It's going to be a slower Cabbage Tree Island for Love and War, but they head now up to Port Stephens, Cabbage Tree Island, and then they head south again. And as we mentioned, that race record set last year by Andrew Comanche is not under threat. 12 hours.
It was 19 minutes and couple of seconds.
Yeah.
But there's a bit of controversy there because Wild Oats 11 have the other record when the finish was at Rushcutters Bay. The finish now at Watson's Bay. So, yeah, they smashed the record last year. I think the previous one was actually by Law Connect at 15 hours, so shaving 3 hours off that. But yeah, it's looking like a big journey. Hopefully they make it back in time. But for 5 p.m. tomorrow afternoon for the big boats, make it home for dinner.
So that's the scene off Sydney Heads. A fleet of 66 started in the Cabbage Tree Island Race in 2023. It was Andrew Comanche and also SHK Scallywag dicing. Law Connect not far astern. Wild Oats 10 had a brilliant start, so did URM. Money Penny and also Whisper were in that top dozen. But URM, the form boat, after having won 3 of the Audi Centre Sydney Blue Water Pointscore races, certainly having another brilliant start for the Johnson brothers. That's where we're going to wind up our coverage, Lisa. It's a beautiful setting, some spectacular pictures coming to you. And our thanks to Jim Bury, the skipper owner of Sail Media, our director, Michael Chittenden, Chitty, Rob Mullally, our boat cameraman, who's done a fab job for us, Sam Brasher, the drone observer, and John O'Witty, the 18-foot skiff sailor, who's the drone cameraman extraordinaire. That's the way I describe him. We've had some amazing pictures from Sail Media. So on behalf of our crew here and our skipper, Jim Bury, Lisa, a final word.
I can see all the yachts, a lot of them heading out to sea, and looks like quite a cruisy evening for them all. Easier to say from the camera cat, but we'll be back soon talking to you more on Tuesday.
Yeah. All eyes on the Solis Big Boat Challenge, but in the meantime, stick to the Cruising Yacht Club of Australia website and you can follow the progress of the Raymarine Australian Maxi Championship. It's goodbye from offshore, just outside the Heads in Sydney.